Welcome to Python HackerRank challenge number 8. This one's starting to get a little bit more difficult. There's actually two parts to it. So the first one is for us to actually solve this problem. And then the second part is for us to structure the solution so that it uses list comprehension. We're going to do this in two parts. We'll solve the problem first just using classic for loops, and then we'll have a think about how we can rewrite our code so that it uses list comprehension. Okay, so let's just jump into the problem. Essentially what we're asked to do is generate these triplets with I, j, and k, where those are integer values, where I goes from 0 to x, j from 0 to y, and k from 0 to z. X, y, and z will be provided. And now we're supposed to generate a list with all possible combinations of these triplets. But there is a catch. So whenever these triplets sum up to a number that is given, which is n, in this case 3, we want to exclude them from this list. So you can see that in the full list, there's this triplet, for example, 1, 0, 2. So that would add up to 3. Therefore, we want to exclude it. After excluding, we would get this list, and that is the final answer that we want to submit. Okay, let's just jump right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is just create an empty list and then start filling it up with our triplets. So we'll call our list my list, and we just declare an empty list just like that. Okay, now we need to start filling up our list. And we'll just do a little demonstration with how we would fill this if there was only one value, like a little singlet, so just for I. In that case, we would just go for I in range. And we want this to go from 0 to x. So in order for this to be inclusive x, we need to go x plus 1. And then we want to append to my list. Append the value of I. Now let's print out our list. Now this is not going to be the final solution, but it just shows us that we're on the right track. Yes, so in this case, x was 1, and we printed out 0 and 1. Now that's a good start. Let's get the other values in there as well. Okay, so what we want to do now is get all the possible combinations for y, j, and k. So we'll use our nested for loops for this. So we'll do the same thing within this for loop for j in range. And in this case for j, we want to go up to y. So that will be y plus 1. And similarly for k in range z plus 1. Okay, now we need to make sure that our append is in this for loop. And of course, we want to now append I, j, k. Okay, so let's have a look what that looks like. Okay, so here you can see that this looks very close to the solution that we actually want, which is the expected output, but we have some extra ones here. So you remember this condition that the sum of these triplets is not supposed to equal a number n. So in this case, it's n equals 2. So there's a few of these that we need to get rid of. So let's fix that now. All right, so all that we have to do is ensure that we only append this triplet if I, j, and k don't add up to n. So all we need to do is insert an if statement. If I plus j plus k is not equal to n, we will append. If they are equal to n, we will not append. It will just pass. So let's run our code. Yep, that looks great. we can submit it, run it through all the test cases, and we'll see that works great. Okay, before we start to get into the list comprehension, let's just quickly review what happened here. So we used these nested for loops that allow us to really iterate for all possible values, all possible combinations of values of I, j, and k, right? Because for the first for loop, let's say the possible values for I are 0 and 1, we'll first do 0, then we'll go through all possible values of j, and for each of those, we'll go through all possible values of k. So in the end, we'll end up with all the possible combinations of I, j, and k, except that we've inserted this condition here that if their sum is equal to n, we won't append. Okay, so you could see that this worked perfectly fine and we passed all of our tests. But we were asked to please use list comprehension rather than multiple loops. So what is list comprehension? List comprehension is essentially a way to declare lists in Python and populate them with elements with using less code than what we have here. Oftentimes, list comprehension can be a little bit more elegant, but you also have to be careful because it can really reduce your readability. So an example of a list comprehension would be my list comp is equal to, and we would just write something in there like a for a in range 10. So I'll comment all of this out, and then we'll print this list and just see what it looks like. We'll run our code. And you'll see this should have all the values from 0 to 9 because it essentially runs through this for loop, but the code is written in a much more compact way. So let's see if we can use this to solve our problem again with what we've already worked out up here. Actually, there isn't a whole lot to it. We already have our information here, so we now just need to compress that into list comprehension. And the way that ends up looking is we'll just go I, j, k. So that's going to be our triplet. And then we will, for I, loop through the range from 0 to x plus 1. And then we can actually just add the other for loops just like this. So for j, it will be in range y plus 1. And then we'll have a third for loop for k in range z plus 1. And now we can even add our if condition in the same line. So if I plus j plus k does not equal n. Okay. So that's a whole lot to take in, but let's run this and see if it works. It does. We'll submit our code to see if it passes all the test cases, and it looks like it does. Let's not celebrate too early. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So you can see this is actually equivalent to what we wrote up here. It is a bit more compact, but it may also be a bit harder to read. But yeah, that's list comprehension for you. I might make a separate video on that at some point. But for now, we're done and we can move on to the next one. See you there.